Hi there, and welcome back to another episode at Station Road. Now, as the title suggests, I'm moving on to a new project. So obviously we'd been working on the disused viaduct, and I think I'd got it to a stage of 99% completion. There's still little bits and pieces to do, but of course most of it's there. So today, of course, it's launching into something new. So obviously with the disused viaduct mostly complete, I could carry on with the surrounding areas, that hillside, the new depot area and so forth, but I kind of felt like I need to take a wee break from that particular area and work on something else, and it's to do with the station area, which has been bothering me for quite a number of years in effect, and that is the length of the platforms. They really are just too short. I think really I can fit up to 3, possibly 3.5 coaches on the platforms, which is not ideal. So I've been having some thoughts around this platform area, the station area, and of course where that small bit of curved viaduct is, and have decided on a plan where I can extend these platforms. So rather than this video running on too long, what we'll do is we'll just jump straight into what my idea, what my plan is, and make a start on these modifications. So you're probably all wondering what on earth is Julian up to this time around, because I forever seem to be performing surgery on my layout. So previous areas that were constructed or modelled get carved up and redone. So I'd have to say really it is the nature of railway modelling. It seems to be a modeller's prerogative really to destroy previously modelled areas and redo them. So that is the joy of railway modelling. So the area in question is this area here. Now, up until maybe about a year ago, I've always been relatively happy with it, but now that I've got this new disused track area, which of course is our viaduct, plus there's also a small bit of disused track out of view over the other end of the layout there as well in the cutting, but I sort of felt like, well, I don't really need to have another bit of disused track. And one of the things that I've always actually not been happy about with this layout, probably one of the most contentious parts of the layout, is the extremely short station platforms, which in effect can really only fit a 2 or 3 car DMU. So although this is not intended to be a mainline station, or this is not really meant to be a mainline railway, this is a branch or subsidiary line. Although double track, it is certainly not a mainline track or railway. So despite that though, the platform, particularly the island platform and this bay platform as well, it's just too short. So with, as I mentioned, disused bit of railway track on the disused viaduct and bit of disused track of course in the cutting as well, we can do away with this, I think. But the plan is, what I want to do is still keep the remnants actually that this track did actually used to be here once upon a time. So what my thoughts are on this is I'm going to lift out the actual girder section of this bridge here, but retain the buttresses. So the remnants that there was a bridge here will actually still be intact, and you'll still see the buttresses, but in a very deteriorated form, so partially demolished but still there. What I'm actually going to do here is, and this was quite a common practice with disused railways, is the tunnels were backfilled. Even under bridges were backfilled, so I'm actually going to fill this in, but maybe just a small part of the tunnel portal is poking out, above the ground level. So this will be probably quite heavily overgrown in this area. But the idea behind this is, with this track gone, because I never use it, and the other problem with this is this, I think, is second radius. This part here might even be first radius, and then we've got one of these Hornby points, one of the very sharp Hornby points, and it's the only thing that sort of, I think, lets this area down, is this is just too tight. This curve is too tight, and I sort of feel like the area could become a little bit more convincing if I eliminate this second radius curve in here, because this goes nowhere. It just stops just inside the hill there. So by lifting that out, what that's actually going to allow me to do is I can actually pull this platform right out to about here. So I'm almost going to sort of like pretend like this actually really happened, like this line was removed completely, the bridge was taken out, so that they could actually extend the station platform. It means I could possibly extend this bay platform a little bit further. It could come down here, and we're going to lose that point. So that point's going to go, we're just going to have this track running through here, platform starting back here, and that will allow me to fit, although this is obviously a parcels train, and of course you can't see the rest of it, but I can convincingly say that we can at least get a 5, possibly a 6 coach train in here if I extend this out. Now, some time back, and you can just see the corner of this platform here poking out, I extended that platform as well. I'm actually going to push that platform out even further still, so I never really sort of got around to finishing this part here. So this platform is actually going to come right out, so the platforms are almost sort of going to immediately begin once the viaduct ends, and that will just give me a little bit of extra length. So unfortunately, some of the stuff in here, like these remnants of rails and sleepers and things like that, a lot of this is going to disappear, but I want to be able to, as I mentioned, retain these buttresses so that we're sort of, you can see that there used to be something there once upon a time. So I'll get into a little bit of destruction, and then I'm thinking in terms of this here, I almost sort of felt like I might just backfill this with some expanding foam, just get a tube of that and actually block this off a little bit and just fill it up, and then I can carve it to shape it. I'm not even going to bother about sort of pulling. I might pull some of this stuff out, but just fill it up and then carve it and see how it goes. Right, so we've now successfully removed and dismantled some of the items that we don't need. So of course the bridge span has been removed. We've taken out a bit of this landform here so that the track could extend further, and I've just sort of pulled away some of the area around here as well. Now when I took out the bridge span, instantly I felt, wow, this has made such a difference, because with just these old buttresses either side of the road remaining, it just creates more of a, I don't know, an interesting aesthetic to this area. And of course, having some of the parapet walls still intact, some are gone, and I'm just going to roughen up this edge with some knocked out brickwork and things along these edges here at some point. Now the next step, as I mentioned, was backfilling this portal tunnel. Now the more I thought about it, I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, let's do it properly. And so what I'm actually going to do, and I've assembled this is laser cut and brick texture wrapped, is I'm actually going to slot this in here. So what I need to do is cut down into these embankments here, and I'm going to slot this in and actually slot it in on a slightly different angle as well. But as you can see, the height of it is much higher, so the idea is we're going to see parts of this. Now you've heard, what a shame, like you've done all this and this is all going to get filled in. Well, so be it. I thought, let's do this so how it would have actually been in the real world. Of course, I'm using expanded foam rather than earth and debris to fill in this area. But as you can see, I've blocked off the portal with just some black card. Now, I'm not quite sure at this stage whether the expanded foam will actually dip down below this. I quite like the idea of just seeing a tiny little wee smidgen of the top of this arch, but it may not. It may actually sort of fill up above that. So that's, you know, it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. So obviously, as I mentioned, the whole point of all of this is so that I can bring this platform out. So this platform is going to come right out down to here. It's basically going to give me another coach length of platform. And while I'm at it, what I'm actually going to do, and this is going to be another extension to this project, is I'm actually going to do new platforms, new station, new everything. So the stations, of course, are Metcalf kits, and I'm thinking of going down once again the scratch built route, or possibly scale scenes, or maybe a bit of both, like a kit bashed scale scenes kit, and of course laser cut platforms, laser cut station buildings and everything. So that's the future for this entire area. So what I'm going to do at the moment anyway is we're just going to place this in here. So it means a little bit more surgery here in the entrance to this tunnel. So this side here, I'm pretty sure I made this out of high density foam. This is the good old fashioned chicken wire. So there's going to be a bit of destruction going on in here. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just have a crack at cutting into this. And this shouldn't be too difficult to get through. So the tunnel portal itself is based loosely on the Catesby tunnel. Not quite sure where the location of that is, so I found that and thought it's a reasonably simple tunnel portal. It's not too ornate, and of course I've just done it in a blue engineer's brick, and found a photo of Catesby tunnel and popped that in the computer, traced it roughly, and then of course measured it all out and scaled it up, or scaled it down I should say, to the correct, or more or less the correct dimensions for this area, but also tweaked it obviously so that it kind of suits and fits into this area. So the portal was done in sort of kind of like two layers. So I used the once again the two 3mm MDF, and then the supporting buttresses, of course, are just another layer on top, and then just all wrapped up in the blue bricks. So I think they'll work quite well. So what I'm doing is just cutting out a slot in here, so essentially this is going to slide down into here, and it doesn't actually need to be too perfect. A case of loosely getting this in here. I'm not actually going to bother about taking out the old portal, because I was never really a fan of the portal anyway, and I think from memory it's well and truly glued in there to some wooden struts, so I think I'd probably have a bit of a tricky time trying to get that out. Alright, so the idea is this is going to, well, it's going to be on a bit of an angle like that, but I have to do the other side, so I'll carry on with this and I'll come back when I've sorted out the other side. Right, so I finished hacking away at these embankments here, so I've cut a slot in this one and I've cut that away there, and I have actually trimmed a slight angle on the base of this tunnel so that it levels out a little bit, and that's simply just slots in there. So we're going to glue this in place, and I'm just going to use a bit of styrene to wedge in behind there, and we'll wait for that to dry, and then we'll actually get on to this expanding foam. I'll probably just shove a little bit down the back, or I might even actually just jam some screwed up newspaper down the back and then fill it in with expanding foam in behind here, and then all of this is going to be filled in. So at this stage it's looking like probably that will actually be completely buried, the portal, which is okay, and although it could go down in a dip maybe, but we'll see how it goes. Right, so I'm just going to glue this in. Just pop a bit of glue on this bottom edge. Right, okay, so we'll let that dry and come back to it with the expanding foam. Right, so the tunnel portal is now reasonably secure, glued along here, jammed in here, and now we'll get on to this expanding foam. Now the expanding foam that I've bought from the local hardware store is Gorilla Pro expanding foam, and I think it's 400ml can. So apparently, according to the instructions, they suggest or recommend that you moisten the area. I guess this will be used in gaps in your house, obviously, but you moisten the area, just spray it with a bit of water to sort of dampen the area, and apparently that allows it to adhere and also cure a little bit better. So now this particular type, you have to hold the can upside down, and the idea is I'm going to do this in layers, because I think this sort of has an expansion of something like, it expands 3 times its original mass, so I don't want to go hard out and then find out that this is all expanding up like some huge balloon of foam. So I think I'm just going to take a cautious approach and do a little bit at a time, and then just do it over a period of sort of layers and see how it goes. So let's just see what happens. So I've just got a spray bottle with some water, so I'm just going to get in here and just dampen that, and let's see what happens. This could be interesting. this is certainly interesting material, and the more I sort of think about it, if I don't do this all now, then the stuff in here is going to dry. It's kind of like I feel like I really should be using this all up at the moment. So yeah, I think I might just carry on and see how it goes. Right, I've got a pavlova on my layout. Looks great. This is really weird stuff. I haven't actually used it before, so yeah, it's very, very sticky, extremely sticky. You certainly wouldn't want to get it in your hair. So I've just sort of used some wooden spatulas just to sort of try and level it out a little bit, but the idea is when this is set, I can then carve this with just a craft knife. So I don't know how long this takes to set, but we'll leave it there for this and come back when it's set and do a bit of carving. Right, we have a somewhat interesting situation here on the station road layout. Now, clearly, I didn't take any of my own advice, thinking it would be better to do this in layers, small bits at a time, and of course you heard me previously say, no, let's just empty the entire can onto the layout. So, this is crazy. This is amazing stuff. Like, so it is now the second day, and well, as you can see, the station road layout is foaming at the mouth. I'm not foaming at the mouth. I actually think this is hilarious, but nonetheless, I've got a bit of carving to do. I think the main thing is our tunnel portal is okay. I think you can't see it, but it is in there. So yeah, a bit of carving. So I guess now, learning from this, a 400ml can is just far too much for what I needed here. I think you can get 200 or 250ml cans, and that would have been a lot better. And I wasn't too sure. I wasn't too sure whether I had to really sort of use the can in one go, because I was concerned that maybe the nozzle would actually basically cure, and then the can would just become redundant, hence why I went ahead and dispersed the entire can onto the layout, and we have this. It's just crazy stuff. So anyway, what we're going to do now is get into a bit of carving, and yeah, I think this might take a wee while, so let's just see how this goes. Now, I'm just using a craft knife, and I'm assuming that's going to be similar to just foam. Yeah, so it's just like cutting through the high density foam that I use for building, but this is truly going to take quite a bit of time. So I think obviously we will speed through this. Right, so that's looking a little bit more respectable now, and I think it's looking pretty good. I might do a little bit more of a cut here. I might actually try and see whether I dip this down a little bit to expose the top of the arch in there, but otherwise it's pretty close to what I was sort of aiming for. So once I've probably done a few more tweaks with it and so forth, then of course what I'm going to do is we'll go over it with some homemade sculptor mold, and we'll do that in the next episode, because otherwise this video is going to get too long. But I think in the end it's close to pretty much what I was sort of aiming for. So you can still see part of the original tunnel mouth in here. Of course I can imagine lots of overgrowth, bushes, trees and that sort of growing up around here a little bit, and of course we've still got our bridge buttresses still visible as well. So yeah, it's taking shape, I think. So there we have it for this new project, and I think it's certainly starting to take shape in terms of the concept, the idea of what I'm hoping to achieve here, obviously with the extended platforms. And it almost sort of made me wonder why on earth I didn't sort of think of this earlier. It looks more interesting as far as I can see in terms of the bridge span gone, but the buttress is still there, and I think it's just generally going to make that whole area a little bit more convincing, not having two tunnel portals quite close to each other and that very sharp radius curve from the old track. So I'll definitely say the expanding foam is a very curious material, and I've certainly learnt a little bit from this exercise of using it to actually backfill an old tunnel. Now, I sort of thought about it, you know, could this actually be used instead of using the high density foam that often modelers will stack on top of each other and then carve it to shape? Could this actually be used instead? And I think the jury is out for me on that, because it's quite unpredictable. I think it's a great material possibly to use if you're filling in an area like as what I've done. I just used far too much of it, but I'm not sure whether it would be much good for doing an entire hillside. I think you might find that it's just too unpredictable and possibly more expensive as well. So yeah, but interesting material, great to work with, easy to carve, and can be sanded as well. So I'll leave it there for today's video. I certainly hope you've gained some inspiration and ideas for your own layout, and maybe there may be a use for expanding foam on your layout. So do take care, everyone. Look after yourselves. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.